So we are trying to share our internet connection from laptop to our Pi through the Ethernet cable. So before that, we just need to make a few of the settings. So we go into our control panel, network and internet, and our network and sharing center. In here, that's my home Wi-Fi. We go to properties and sharing, and make sure they both are on. And the home network connection should be Ethernet, not the local area connection, but the Ethernet. Once you get this configured, press OK, and make sure that those settings are stable by just checking and make sure that it still allows you to share the internet connection. Say OK, close that. And for the second part, we just need to turn off our firewall. For that, we go into our firewall settings, turn on and off, and make sure they both are off, as the private as well as the public. Once you get those off, just say OK. And that's pretty much the settings we need for our Wi-Fi and the firewall defender. And for the second part, we connect our Ethernet cable to our Raspberry Pi. In the second part, I've got my Ethernet connection from my laptop to the Raspberry Pi, and it's powered on. And we can see there's no internet access over here. So what we do is go into our Ethernet settings, go to properties, and into our IPv4 settings, and we are providing the static address instead of the automatic address. So in this part, make sure you enter the field between the class C, between 192 and 223. So that's what we will do. Control panel. We'll appoint a static IP address, which will be 192.168.104 is 1. So the last two part, or the last three part, which can be either your wish. And the subnet mask is 255.255.255. And in a default gateway, we will make sure that the network portion is the same as the IP address, which will be 192.168.104 and 0. And the DNS server 888, and select validate upon exit. Press OK, and that should be OK. So to make sure our settings are there, it's validated, we go to details and make sure the IPv4 subnet mask and the default gateways, all the ones which we entered, and you should see the internet connection on this one. So that's pretty much all the settings you need on the laptop, and we're gonna do provide the static address on the Wi-Fi, on the Raspberry Pi. So for that, we need the PuTTY. Now we'll try to provide a static IP address to the Pi. For that, we need PuTTY to make a SSH connection. And the only requirement is like you have to have your SSH enabled on the Pi earlier before doing this step. So once you do Raspberry Pi.local, it's Raspberry Pi.local, and open it. You can just log into your Pi, and my password is okay, cool. So I'm in my Pi, and it's just gonna take a few seconds to for my Pi to load the script. Cool. So I'm in my Pi, and in the Pi, you just need to make a change in this sudo nano etc dhcpd.conf file. What it basically does is like provides a static IP address for the Pi to obtain every time the Ethernet connection is enabled to the laptop. So once you're in this file, yeah, it shouldn't ask me that thing, but so once you're in this file, there you go. Go in the very last, and you just need to edit this 4 lines of code in there. So it says interface Ethernet ET80. For the static IP address, I'm going to provide it the IP address which I provided in my Ethernet settings, just the address portion, which will be 192.168.104. And for the host portion, you can just provide any of the random digits. So I'm just going to do 10. We don't need the IP6 address, so I just commented it out. And for the static router, provide the IP address which you put in your Ethernet settings, which was, let me open it and show it to you guys. Not the Wi-Fi, but the Ethernet details. Okay, so it was 192.168.104.1. okay, not the 193 but 192. And for the domain server, it will be 192.168.104.1 and 8888. That was a server, and we don't need the IPv6 address. You guys can just delete this. And so it's just this 4 lines of code. You can just add it towards the very end of the script. That's perfectly fine. And once you do that, press save the file, Control X, Y, enter. And just to make sure that this is saved, I am gonna check one more time. Yeah, 192.168.104.1. Cool. I'm just gonna exit this script, and it looks good over here. Yeah, there is still internet connection over here. Okay, I'm just going to reboot my Pi so that the script can run and provide the static IP it needs. I'm going to do sudo reboot. Okay, so I have restarted my PuTTY and made a SSH connection by typing our Raspberry Pi.local. And so to make sure, I'm gonna check my IP address, which is 192.168.104.10, the one which we assigned in our dhcp file. And to make sure the internet works, I'm gonna ping google.com, and you can see like the bytes are going completely fine. I'm gonna pause this and make a remote desktop connection with my Pi. For that, I'm going to use the remote desktop connection, Raspberry Pi.local, and connect. Yes. And for my Pi, it's Pi and okay, I forgot to enter my password, so you do Pi. No. Pi and map. Okay, so I'm in my Raspberry Pi, and to make sure the internet is working, I'm just going to open a web browser. My remote desktop, and trying to see my internet working. I'm just going to reload this page, and there we go. So yeah, my Google service is working on my Raspberry Pi, and I'm just gonna, as well as my laptop, it seems to be working just fine. Cool. So That's how you make a connection using the static IP address provided to the dhcp script on your Raspberry Pi and the same network address portion on your Ethernet connection to your laptop. Thank you.